This is the 1886 Herbert F. Crosby Catboat Sarah. The Cape Cod Maritime Museum will build a replica of this boat over the next 2 years, using the original as a model both for shape and construction.
The backbone is complete on Sarah now. As you can see on the starboard side, the rabbet has been cut and it's 99% finished. We still have to dress down a little bit here. But what's important to notice on this rabbet is you can sort of see the angle of the planking as it's going to be running across the boat. There's a rolling bevel that rolls down here that starts off at a very, well, a 30-degree angle, and as you get forward, it rolls up so that the planking will fay into the stem at a nice angle for the entrance to the boat, the hull in the water. There were rib ends in here on the frames, and this would lay on the inside of it. You can see it's laying up against these right here. And what you do, once that's all hard up against the inside of the boat, you tighten down the wing nuts to get the shape, and then take it out of the boat very carefully. Once you had that shape with the frame, you would then put it on the floor and make a template for it using So you can get about 3 pairs of frames per setup. So each one of these bays has about 3 frames in it. So you're able to get, you know, it's another great Crosby production technique. By putting a fair amount of overbend in each frame, you can work it out, you know, as you move aft. You start in each bay. You start with the tightest curve to get your shape, thereby letting it out as you go aft a little bit. Come along on there. Good. All right, pound it down. So we're planking the boat now. We've heeled the boat over and we're planking from the bottom up. We're going to meet somewhere in the middle at the turn of the bilge. You can see down here these garboards and broads are going to be very wide in the widest part of the boat, almost a foot. Well, actually exactly a foot. And the reason they did that is they were able to plank this fairly flat portion of the boat fairly quickly. Just 3 strakes they can get up to right about here, which saves them a lot of time as boat builders. So this plank, without going into too much technical details, probably the hardest one to fit in the boat. It's called the devil plank, the shutter plank, or the whiskey plank. Mainly because after you're done, you're ready for a snort. So, down here.
I love it.
Thank you. One for the boat. Yeah. We're dressing down a round tree into a 4-sided timber to prepare it for final shaping for our boom for our catboat. And we're using here today is an adze, which of course is a wonderful tool dating back to, I believe, the Egyptians. And we've made a series of cross cuts along the top of this face. You can see the knots. This is actually the outside of the tree, and we're going to use this to basically chip out sections. Okay. See, it goes pretty fast.
Catboats similar to Sarah used to number in the thousands in Barnstable alone. Today, Sarah serves as a humble reminder to those days gone by. Why is it that for some peculiar reason wooden boats that have long since seen their serviceable days still survive? Why do owners of boats that by all rights should be disposed of go to great lengths to try to find homes for them or restore them? They bear the mark of the human hand, for wooden boats are perhaps one of the most compelling and beautiful forms that man has ever created.
I am really glad that it's become part of the history and future of Barnstable. I would like to thank the Cape Cod Maritime Museum for helping my family's history come alive. Thank you.
Overloaded there. It's perfect. Perfect. I thought.
Back in the 1800s, New Bedford, Massachusetts was the whaling capital of the world. Along the bustling harbor, masts towered above the wharfs, and giant barrels filled with whale oil, the principal source of light for a fledgling nation, were stacked high.
These wharves were the lifeblood of the city. This is where all the action took place. When the vessels were outfitted, they were outfitted at the wharves with everything that was needed to pursue a whaling voyage, which is an enormous amount of material: food, hardware, people.
Charles Beetle had inherited the family business from his father, and at his waterfront shop, he made an unusual promise.
He would build a 30-foot whaleboat in 48 hours, 4 hours on, half hour off for his crew, who worked continuously until the boat was built.
If it wasn't finished within 48 hours, it was free. But Charlie Beetle was no ordinary boat builder.
The principal idea was that he was going to prefabricate all the parts to the thing, put them in bins around the edge of his shop, and then assemble the boat, or a group of boats, from the parts in the bins, and then finish the boat and send it off.
In a time before power tools, this was no mean feat, but Charles Beetle was no mere man. Described by one employee as an untidy giant with a heart as big and generous as his huge hands, he had a ready crew, men who would sacrifice sleep and work through the night to finish a boat. The boat building room was specifically set up for the challenge ahead, the form ready and waiting.
He had what I guess you could call a one-position assembly line. He had a very different way of approaching the work, and this is stuff that he'd all thought out, and it worked very well.
So began the legend of Beetle boats, vessels of uncompromising quality that men half a world away would stake their very lives on. 29 feet in length, the boats were pointed at both ends and came equipped with a mast, a sail, and long oars. The work was dangerous, and the whaleboats were designed to move quickly. The New Bedford fleet sailed the 7 seas in pursuit of whales, and it was not a job for the faint of heart.
These were highly refined craft and very reliable, very fast, built to withstand built to be flexible and to withstand the rigors of the fishery. So if they got tapped by the flukes of a sperm whale or smacked by the fin of a right whale, sure, a whale's going to break a boat in half, but the boat could also flex so that the cedar planks could give, but that the oak frames would often stay in place. So, a stove boat was a common occurrence in whaling, and the boat would fill up with water, and the guys would, sit there in the ocean and until they were rescued, and then the boat would be hauled back on board and break out cedar plank and replace the plank, and as long as the keel wasn't broken, they could fix the boat right there on board.
When the whale was brought alongside the ship, the next phase began. Men balanced on catwalks, small, narrow boards suspended from rope, to cut the whale into pieces, which were then hauled aboard and boiled to extract the valuable oil. It was a messy, physical job.
These men spent their lives on the sea, taking their living from the sea. You go whaling, you drag a 25-ton carcass alongside your ship and start chopping into it with sharp spades, and the blood's going to flow and the sharks are going to come. So the sea is a very dangerous place in which to earn one's living indeed.
So revolutionary was Beetle's method of boat building that legend has it, a man who would change the way Americans lived stopped by the shop.
There's this rumor that goes around, which I've never been able to confirm, but it's a great story that when Henry Ford was traveling around studying things to get his plant going. He studied a bike shop in Springfield and the Beetle shop in New Bedford to get ideas about how to set all that up. Now, whether or not that actually happened, I cannot tell you. But it could have, and it made.
As a yacht broker, when he said he was going to build his own boat and do it in his backyard, I envisioned a normal horror story of the guy doing it by pieces and running out of money, or his wife divorcing him or something else, and never gets done.
I really had no sincere interest in tackling a boat building project. But it began to become very evident that if I was going to get the yacht that I wanted, one that was built to some real yacht standards and workmanship, one that was truly aesthetically pleasing without any ugly elements that were major detractions, I was going to have to build the thing. All over the country. We flew down to Florida twice and down to Maryland, looking at various beauties of yesteryear that had been at one time famous ocean racers, and we found beautiful hulks. Lovely looking old ladies that were tired. And today is about the last day of March, and we finally have begun planking. That is the first plank. One plank after another is turned out, first spiled, laid out, bandsawed, planed to that bandsawed line, and then with a backing plane hollowed out on the inside, and then trial fit, hand planed to a final fit, and then ultimately when you have 3 or 4 planks ready to go on and they're all ready, you can glue them and screw them. It's a lot of fun. It lasted for 2 months, the initial Carvel layer, that's the first layer of planking. I think that one of our most exciting and interesting parts was turning the hull right side up from its original position upside down. That was a 2-day project that I will never forget. I had a suspicion that we might have to remove part of the house in order to turn the boat, but when we got to that point, it was very easy to take the chainsaw and remove the house. I would have gladly cut down half the house if need be at that point.
The mast was stuck from one end of the shop all the way out the window across the driveway, and it was time to move it into the side yard. So we decided that the best way to do this was to gather as many people as we could and entice them for cocktails. And so we invited everyone over for about 5 o'clock so that we could get all, we invited our biggest and bulkiest friends and had them all come over for a drink, and tried not to serve drinks before we moved the spar. So much work had gone into it, but we had to wait until we had at least 40 people. That way it would only be something like, 25 to 50 pounds per person. And it was
completely worked out before I even decided in the end to finally build the boat. A friend of mine and I got in a Corvette with a 16-foot stick in my hand, and we drove the route between my home and Hyannis to make sure that there wasn't anything that would stop us cold. One of the great things about this boat, I think, and I think that all of us take a great deal of pride in, is the fact that she was built really by us. Probably 95% of this yacht was home built entirely.
This boat is really what might be considered a showboat for its class. Everything is put together with very meticulous joiner work. The bright work is just Bristol finish. And what makes this more of an exception is the fact that it was done by the owner himself.
It would be very unusual for a yard building a yacht today to fabricate all the things that we did here. Such things as tanks and the spars, for example. An awful lot of that sort of thing we did here.
Somebody asked me some years ago to describe a classic yacht. After 30 years of continuous involvement with wooden sailing craft, I am more convinced now than ever that a plank-on-frame vessel is the ultimate in yacht construction. Not only does this method produce an enduring vessel with integrity, heart, and soul, but it requires a process that is so ancient and noble as to inspire the builder to work above his ability, to continue challenging himself in his expression of the rarest combination of science and art. You know, people talk about the swans. You know, the S&S swans are classics. Well, yeah, but no one's going to want to rebuild that in 60 years like you do a real classic plank-on-frame boat, because it's just a piece of plastic. I mean, so that's my understanding of classic, is that it has to be individual parts that are put together and that, you know, that challenge the builder and that make the builder really work above his ability.
This means 2 feet, 0 inches, and 5/8. The last number is eighths on the center line. So, how do you know it's eighths? How does it say? No, because this is a convention that works for all American boat designers. Feet, inches, and eighths. All right.
Okay. Now, you want to give her a tunk? Up. Doesn't look too bad. Shut it up. Yeah. Congratulations, Mr. Rockwell.
Congratulations to you. You got yourself a schooner.
Yeah, we got some planks on there now.
Yeah.
I think the main reason for deciding on a wooden boat is is an aesthetic reason. It's just that we think, both of us think, that the evolution of boats probably took 5,000 years and that it reached an almost perfect shape. Then cruising and chartering came into fashion, so packing 8 to 10 people into a boat of 38 feet made them wide like a bathtub. And I think it is a civilizational mishap, I think, that we're experiencing. As you live on the boat, you develop not only a sense of propriety, ownership, but also respect to the boat itself, but mostly, I think, to the people who built it.
Hi, I'm Tony Davis, owner of Arey's Pond Boatyard, and here we have Drew and Bill building the first, hull number 1 of the Arey's Pond 18-foot catboats. This boat was custom designed and being built for some people from East Orleans who wanted a large cockpit and a small cabin. There's no boat on the market that offers that in the catboat design, so we designed the boat to fit their needs. And that's something we do here at Arey's Pond. We build in glass